If you look outside or you just stand outside for a moment, you can't help but notice that summer has arrived in full force. 97 degrees here in northern Nevada yesterday, and we anticipate that it's going to stay hot. And the first time you turn on your air conditioner and find out that it's just not quite blowing cold enough, it's a good time to call Rob McMullen over at RPM Automotive and talk air conditioning with him. And here to talk about things you need to know around your air conditioning system that could save you a ton of money. Please welcome Rob McMullen. Thanks for being here today.
Good morning, Mitch. Thanks for having me.
I said it got hot outside, and yesterday I was like finding out myself it was like taking a little longer for that air conditioning system to cool off the vehicle. And there's some telltale signs that you were going to share with our listeners that could save them some money. So let's get right into that.
Yeah, Mitch, when it gets as hot as it did yesterday, your AC system in your car is working as hard as it possibly can to keep you cool inside that vehicle. And oftentimes, over the years, the air conditioning system can lose its refrigerant. And it's usually a slow process that happens over time. And people really don't realize that it's not quite as cold as it used to be. But when that system's fully charged, some of the systems we can get down to 42 degrees and have some nice cold air coming out of those vents for you.
Well, and if the system isn't fully charged, I understand that it can actually wear other things out faster.
It does. When the system is low on refrigerant, the compressor is going to cycle more often and run longer than it should. And so you could actually wear the compressor out prematurely and take what may be a minor repair or recharge and fix a small leak versus replacing a compressor for hundreds of dollars.
If not breaking on some of these modern cars, even
over $1,000.
Over $1,000 easily.
Yeah.
And so when a vehicle isn't necessarily even pumping out enough force to it, too, that's another common thing this time of the year that people are finding out. It's just not forcing the air out as hard.
Not blowing hard enough out the vents. A couple things can cause that. Probably the number one issue that we see is most of the newer vehicles today have what's called a cabin air filter. That actually takes the outside air, filters it before it introduces it into the occupants in the vehicle. And most people don't even know that they have that cabin air filter, and especially in our climate here, it's as dusty as it is, those filters will plug up, and over time, again, just causing that air conditioning system to keep working harder and harder to keep the vehicle cooler.
Well, because there's a sensor inside the car trying to read when it gets down to the temperature that you're setting it out on these automatic climate controls, and if it's not getting there because the air isn't coming in, you're still creating the same problem with the compressor.
Yep,
it's
running
still
that
cycling.
Compressor longer than it needs to be.
And so I think a bunch of our listeners are going to go, yeah, I've had that happen before where their air conditioning is coming out on the floor instead of out of the vents on the dash.
Right. All the newer vehicles today have automatic control systems. There's motors that move doors for temperature control and also move doors inside the system for directing at what point of you want it to come out at. Oftentimes those motors will wear out, or sometimes even the doors inside of the plenum, they'll break inside, and then you can't control where you want that air to go.
And another one this time of the year is the first time people turn their air conditioning on. They're going, oh, that's doesn't smell so good right now.
Yeah, I get that real funky smell. And almost all cars nowadays, you're going to get that out. And what that is actually mold and mildew that's building up inside the vent system of the air conditioning. And that's causing that funk, and it can also cause problems with allergies if you're real sensitive. You get health issues, breathing issues. So the cabin air filter comes into play there, but also we can deodorize and decontaminate the venting system to clean all that out and disinfect it and kill all those odors and have a nice fresh smell.
And there are a lot of people that would benefit from having that done that don't realize that it may not be the outside. They're complaining this time of the year the pollens are high, but it may just be their car is causing them to have these allergy problems.
Absolutely. That filter's plugging up, and it just all of a sudden that starts coming into the vehicle.
Well, and you mentioned that currently this time of the year you're seeing an increase in the number of people bringing their air conditionings in for failures. But preventatively, I think that people will be surprised how reasonable it is to get their air conditioning serviced with you. So let's give them an idea of what that looks like.
Well, Mitch, if you mention us that you heard us on this show, we're running a special right now for $59.95. We'll do a complete air conditioning system inspection. It includes hooking up our machine, measuring the pressures in the system, checking all the vent controls, looking at the cabin air filter, having a sniff for those funky smells. So that's a complete system inspection. And then if there's something that does need to be taken care of, at that point we can provide an estimate. And as I said before, if you catch the little stuff, it doesn't turn into big stuff.
Well, and we talked also, I think this is a big deal, that people will think, their air conditioning is not blowing so cold. And there's some of these things on the internet and some of these wholesale department type stores where they can get a can and connect it to the air conditioning system to try to plug up any potential leaks. And you advise against those, and so do we, but I just want to share with our listeners why they don't want to do that.
A couple of reasons why. It's not always that your system is low on refrigerant that could be causing it not to blow cold enough. There may be another issue. So if it's full of refrigerant and you add more refrigerant to it, you could do serious damage in an instant. So definitely don't want to do that. The other issue is that the stop leak part of what they're putting in there, if maybe you do have a small leak, it in most cases will stop that small leak, but it doesn't know what else not to plug up. So that those stop leak materials get in the rest of the system, and if, say, that comes into the shop that it does need a repair, we need to fix a hose or an O-ring, a fitting, something like that, oftentimes the system is completely contaminated. We can't clean that stop leak out, and now you've turned, what you thought was a $20 or $30 can of stop leak into over $1,000 job to replace major components in the system. And
you talk about an O-ring and evacuating the system, replacing an O-ring and recharging it is not that expensive compared to having to tear apart a system to try to clean it and replace components that are plugged up.
Absolutely.
So what would be your recommendation this time of the year for people in their general maintenance, especially because it gets hot? So we just hit on the air conditioning side of it, and there's other things that they should really pay close attention to this time of the year.
Obviously, you want to make sure that your coolant is in good condition, because that not only keeps your car from freezing in the winter, it keeps it from overheating in the summertime. So don't ever open your cooling system when the vehicle is hot. If you do want to inspect it yourself, the only time you should do that is after the car's been sitting overnight, first thing in the morning before you even start that vehicle. Then you can inspect that coolant.
And some of the other things this time of the year that I think people neglect are even their tire pressures.
Absolutely. The hotter it gets outside, the hotter the tires are going to run, and that actually causes the tires to expand. And so you have to make sure that those tires are up to proper pressure in order to do their job and do it safely.
Well, and I want to share this with our listeners that may not know you, because you've been in our community for tens of years, decades.
Yeah.
And you have several different businesses on the same property, which is fantastic for our community, because the level of quality and excellence that you provide our community is on so many different levels of their automotive needs. I want to make sure that we don't just skip over those. So let's talk about the 4 different businesses that you have on that location and how they can get a hold of you and what services you can provide them.
Thanks for bringing that up, Mitch. We kind of started out as doing specialty and ended up expanding into a complete one-stop shop. A little easier for me to tell you what we don't do than spend an hour on what we can do. But we don't do tires. We don't do exhaust work, and we don't do body work. But literally, Mitch, we can do anything else when it comes to your vehicle. As far as if you have a window that doesn't roll up and down, we can take care of that. If you've got oil leaks, if you've got a transmission that's not working properly, we could also do all of the preventative maintenance services. So with our businesses, we have Lube Pros, and that's our preventative maintenance end of it.
And we talked about that on a previous show. It is getting your car in and getting it serviced, but not a 10-minute oil change, but not much longer, but properly inspected. Not one of these, all we do is change your oil and use the lowest quality filters and lubricants. This is a proper oil change in a timely fashion with a complete inspection.
That's correct. For us, it's not about changing oil and selling oil filters. When you bring your vehicle into our shop, We want to make sure and do a complete safety inspection on that vehicle so that you have the knowledge of what may need to be done, or, hey, is everything good to go, so you don't have to worry about it when you head for Disneyland, that your car's all taken care of.
A proper oil change. It's really important. A lot of people take these shortcuts and save $1, they think, but cost themselves thousands. And then the other businesses?
Scotty's Transmissions. We specialize in automatic and manual transmission repair and replacement, as well as transfer cases. A lot of the new vehicles today, or actually all of them, are electronically controlled, and see a lot of issues with the electrical problems that some might say that it's a mechanical failure. And we've repaired a lot of transmissions versus replaces transmission because of electrical issues. And
saving people money.
Yeah, it's very, very important to know both ends of that spectrum.
And then RPM Automotive, your general and fleet maintenance for our large corporations and companies with a number of vehicles. You can service them as well.
Mitch, we have many fleets, including municipalities, police and fire vehicles, utility companies, cable companies, large construction companies, fleets with over 1,000 vehicles. And we're their one-stop shop to come in and do the preventative maintenance work and make sure that those vehicles are out on the road and they're safe every day of the week.
And with enough bays to get you in and out in a secure facility. That's Rob McMullen with RPM Automotive here in Sparks, Nevada. And how do they get a hold of you?
359-0840 is RPM Automotive, or you can go to our website and schedule an appointment online at www.rpmautomotiveinc.com.
Thanks for being here today.
Mitch, thanks for having me.